And here we begin the letter to the Galatians on Paul's second missionary journey. Paul decides to revisit the churches of Galatia. Paul and Barnabas separate over John Mark, and when Barnabas desires to have Mark travel with them, Paul and Silas, the refutation, the argument is based over Mark joining them again, and this is a desire of Barnabas, but Paul seems a little upset about the former departure, or very upset, we could say, about the former departure of Mark when things were tough, and he actually splits with Barnabas over this decision. So finally, Paul and Silas are joined by Timothy, a disciple who lives in Lystra. The party moves out and strengthens the churches everywhere they go. When the Spirit would not permit Paul to go into Asia or to preach in Bithynia, Paul had a vision at Troas of a man from Macedonia begging him to come over and help them. He took this to be the will of God and set sail the next day. Lydia, a wealthy businesswoman, is the first convert in Philippi. A slave girl followed them around, telling them that they were God's messengers, but her spirit was perverse. And by them, I'm referring to that all the crowds were being somehow warned or pre-warned that these were servants of the Most High, these were servants of God. When Paul discerned just what the problem was, he cast the spirit out of the girl and wound up in jail because she could no longer tell fortunes and make money for her owners. The jailer at Philippi became a believer after listening to Paul and Silas sing and worship God all night, with their backs bleeding and torn. At daytime, they were released after the officer found out that Paul was a Roman citizen and should not have been treated as they were. But they did ask them to leave the city. At Thessalonica, when the God-fearing Greeks and many of the prominent women believed the gospel, the Jews again became jealous and formed a mob of nefarious characters and started a riot. As soon as nightfall came, they sent Paul to Berea, where he was received. Many Jews and Greek women and men believed. The Jewish agitators came to Berea to cause trouble also. Paul left there for Athens, but Timothy and Silas remained in Berea. In Athens, Paul preaches to the philosophers about the monument to their unknown God. Paul's sermon at the Areopagus, Acts 17:22 through 31. When they heard about the resurrection, some of them laughed and made fun, but others wanted to hear Paul speak further on this subject. In Corinth, Paul and Aquila and Priscilla, who, like him, were tent makers by trade, they had left Italy, let me restate that. In Corinth, Paul met Aquila and Priscilla, who, like him, were tent makers by trade. They had left Italy because of the Roman law and had expelled Jews from Rome. When Silas and Timothy joined him in Corinth, he resumed his preaching to the Jews. When they rejected him, he shook out his clothes and said he was turning to the Gentiles. He resumed preaching in the house of Titus Justus, next door to the synagogue. Many Jews accepted the gospel. Paul stayed in Corinth 1.5 years, teaching and preaching. Imagine this. as the Roman law is getting more and more difficult, and even people like Priscilla and Aquila are being pushed around, and Jews are being outlawed in being certain areas, and yet you've got this concern of this new group among the Jews who are seeming to be agitators, and even so much that the rumors are going around, and there are a select group of nefarious folks that are seeking to make sure that this new gospel is contained or somehow muted. And the fact of the matter is that they are pushed about and pushed around, but in the process it seems that the gospel then only spreads more dramatically. Hallelujah, isn't that great? Even in the midst of all of that, as man persecutes, God extends and opens the door for people to hear the gospel message. Well, through all this, we know that the Jews made specific Jews, with nefarious plans, made a concerted attack on Paul and brought him before the proconsul Gallio, who threw it out of court. The Jews, these nefarious Jewish people, then beat Sosthenes, the synagogue ruler. Paul set sail for Syria, promising to return if God willed. He cut his hair to fulfill a vow at Ephesus. He left Priscilla and Aquila and sailed for Caesarea, after which he went to Antioch. I'm going to take a moment and pause here as we prepare for our next lecture in this series, but I hope you're able to follow even through some of my missteps or clumsy pronunciations from time to time. I know that does happen. But I'm praying that you're getting the richness of all of this and the power of this message as the gospel just continues to press